EA Sports released the deep dive trailer and blog article for College Football 25 this morning, and while the trailer was exciting, it was the 85-page blog about Dynasty Mode that is packed with goodies, loads of information such as online information, custom conferences, coaching skill trees, sliding into players' DMs, and much, much more. I can't remember the last time I read 85 pages. I guess college maybe, but here we go. I'll do my best.
Once there was a girl.
Today, Junior?
So College Football 25, I think, has the potential to be the best football RPG or just sports RPG game we've seen in maybe ever. There's some pretty awesome stuff going on here, and also for all of you that like to build up your one-star schools into powerhouses, I think that's going to be really difficult in this game, and I'll tell you why later on in the video. I figured the best way to break down Dynasty Mode for College Football 25 is to step through it as you would if you were playing the game and starting Dynasty Mode for the first time. Try and walk through it that way. So let's start there. I mean, the first thing when starting Dynasty Mode is picking your team. Are you going with a 5-star powerhouse or a 1-star nobody to build from the ground up? And then after you pick your team, it's time for the custom conferences if you choose to do so. So if you want to put the Pac-12 back in its former glory and put all the teams back, go for it. Move JMU out of the Sun Belt and into the ACC? Why not? It's going to be resembled on the field and on the uniform patches for the team. Or, just create some super conferences and load up like 20 teams into the Big Ten or the SEC. And then within that, you can create it with all its divisions on or off, division names, the number of conference games per season. Is there a conference championship game? Where's that conference championship game played? It's all there, all very familiar from NCAA Football 14. And after you've messed around with conferences and moving teams around, usually that's the time you make your coach. So first up, when you make your coach, it's your name, your appearance, etc. But now we have more, and this is where this RPG element that I was talking about comes in. Coaches will have an RPG skill tree with 3 base archetypes to choose from: recruiting, motivation, and scheme. From these base archetypes, you can progress in multiple ways, become an elite recruiter and unlock everything in that skill tree, or try a more hybrid route where you're equally good at motivating and recruiting, and make your style more as like a talent developer. College Football 25 will allow you to mix and match skills to create your own progression path and be a unique coach. There's 11 different archetypes with all their own focuses and perks, no archetype being dominant over the other, so it's really just about finding what works best for you personally. EA wanted to create a unique experience that's reflecting what coaches are in real life. No one coach is just great at everything, and there also isn't a single path or coaching style that makes a great coach either. And that needs to be reflected in the game. So some coaches are great at strategy with the X's and O's and drawing up plays. Some are just great recruiters. Some are awesome at motivating their players and having great speeches. They're all different and they can all find success in their own ways. Progressing your coach will be very similar to NCAA Football 14, where you earned XP by playing the game and complete goals that award XP. Small goals like getting a first down or scoring a touchdown, maybe even winning a game, to medium-sized goals that happen throughout the season, like signing a 4-star recruit, winning 10 games, winning that rivalry game, to major goals like conference championships or producing a player who gets drafted in like the first 3 rounds of the NFL. You'll be earning XP on individual games, individual weeks, seasons, and player careers, and then you can even fine-tune and adjust how fast or how slow coach progression occurs. However, earning XP isn't enough to unlock skills. You also need to complete some prerequisites. So while XP and leveling up can earn you coach points to spend on skills, you can't be an elite recruiter without proving it first. You'll also need to have signed 2 top 5 recruits and spend 50 coach points in the recruiter archetype first before being able to unlock that elite recruiter skill. Coins are not enough. Are you confused yet? Let me break it down, right? So you play the game, you earn XP. XP levels you up. Leveling up gets you coach points. Then you use those coach points to unlock archetypes, and within those archetypes, you have your coach abilities with their different tier grades. There we go. That's basically how it's gonna work. For example, there's a scheme guru archetype that focuses on your gameplay style. So if you're a coach who likes to play fast, you can upgrade your fast tempo offense ability or attribute within that scheme guru archetype. And then those upgrades have different tiers to them. So tier 1, for example, offensive players fatigue slower while in the hurry up. At tier 2, there's an increased delay to defenders looking to the sideline at the snap. Tier 3, team composure boost for first downs gained while running hurry up. And then at tier 4, there's a chance you get to see the defense's coverage shell while in hurry up. Now, if you remember in the gameplay deep dive, they broke down being able to disguise coverages and not have to be stuck in the default at all times. So if you're running hurry up offense, you have the fast tempo attribute at tier 4, there's a chance you might see their coverage shell and what they're disguising while you're in hurry up. You can also make your team just a well-oiled machine who doesn't get phased by rowdy crowds while on the road, and you can upgrade their discipline and communication abilities. Something like hater blockers, which is a tier 1 attribute that reduces the crowd noise impact while on the road. So now we've built yourself as the coach, you've picked one of your base archetypes, you know how leveling up is going to work throughout the season. What about your coordinators? You need a staff, right? You need an offensive coordinator, you need a defensive coordinator. They're also going to have the same archetypes and abilities available to them. And remember, when it comes to managing your staff, you might want to find some coordinators that complement your abilities and help cover your bases, because you can't cover everything alone as a head coach. Or you can also go all in and focus on the same aspects across the board, as abilities of your staff will stack together. So as the head coach, owning the quarterback icy veins ability paired with your offensive coordinator also owning that same ability will actually create a larger boost to the quarterback. Those boosts between your staff members will stack on top of each other for the quarterback. Your coordinators, however, they will automatically progress and they'll choose their archetypes and abilities. You have no control over what they purchase. You have no control over where they upgrade. So when you're making those initial decisions about what their base archetype is and what their schemes are, that's going to be important, because they most likely will upgrade their abilities within those packages there. And just like NCAA Football 14, you're going to have coaches' contracts with expectations for you to meet. Failing to meet them will lower your job security. Meeting expectations will keep your job safer. Obviously, some events are going to have greater impacts than others. Like losing to an FCS school is not a good look, and that could hurt your job security. And beating a rival team, if you're Auburn and you are having like a down season, let's say you're 4-6, and then you go and win the Iron Bowl, that's actually a pretty big deal, and that could increase your job security even on a down season. So you've hired your staff, you know how you're upgrading yourself, and you're playing games, and now it's time for recruits. I mean, that's the next part, right? You've picked your coach style, you've picked your staff. Now, who do you recruit? Before we get into that, it's not just about being interested in a player, but getting that player interested in your school. The familiar categories from previous NCAA games that we've seen in the My School tab are returning, with the likes of playing time, program tradition, academic prestige, coach stability, campus lifestyle. They're all making a return. Your school is graded in these 14 categories, and players also have a level of importance for all 14 categories. So let's say we're Miami, we're recruiting a guy from South Florida, our proximity to home would be an A+, but maybe that's not important to this recruit, so that A+ isn't going to help you. You're going to have to find something else to persuade him to your school. Meanwhile, let's put that recruit in Nebraska, and the proximity of home is important to him. You're not going to have a good grade there, so you're going to have to find some other ways to convince him that Miami is the place to go. You can do this by spending time to search his social media, send him a message, reach out to his friends or family, or even just sell him on the school. But as you're doing these things, you can learn more about the recruit through social media, what he likes, and maybe you'll find something that aligns with your school profile and you can pitch him on. So we're looking at Quincy here. I have no idea how important stadium atmosphere or brand exposure is to him, but we have strong A+ grades. So I can potentially search his social media, maybe reach out to some family members and unlock that information and then use it towards my advantage. You only have a certain amount of hours per week to recruit and scout players, so you have to use your time wisely. And remember when I said that building up a 1-star school is going to be really hard? This is why. So a 5-star caliber school is going to start with 1,000 hours per week to spend on scouting and recruiting. It's quite a bit. A 1-star caliber school, such as Kennesaw State, is only going to start with 350 hours. That's it. Time is going to be such a far more valuable resource as the 1-star school, and this is for the preseason also. So recruiting hours are actually going to change based on the time of year. In the regular season, you have games to prep for, so the amount of hours you get for recruiting is actually going to be less than they are in the off season and the preseason. So those preseason times as a 1-star school as Kennesaw State, you have 350 hours to work with versus a 5-star powerhouse that has 1,000 hours to work with. While attributes and abilities are to be scouted, a player's development trait is not. The team at EA, they talked with coaches in real life about identifying a player's development trait, and they pretty much overwhelmingly got an answer saying that it's an intangible factor that it's tough to identify without distinct intuition and direct in-person contact with the recruit. So a lot of times what they decided at EA is that they should just lock the development trait until National Signing Day. Now you can also unlock different attributes like the mind reader ability, so there's a chance you could learn their development trait when you spend time with them during their official visit, but otherwise development traits are not able to be scouted. And speaking of visits, let's say you've scouted the player, you've liked their stats, you recruit the player to gain interest, find their interests align with yours, now you want to schedule a visit. There's actually 2 different parts here, and one of them is pretty new. A couple things here are new that we haven't seen in the previous games. So as you can see here, we're recruiting this guy to Alabama. We have 2 options in front of us for weeks he can come out and visit. One is for an FCS school, and another is during a rivalry game. A loss to Not the Experts Pandas in week 12 brings you down a little bit, but a win doesn't really do anything for you. So maybe you gamble and schedule him to visit during the Iron Bowl, where there's a little bit more at stake whether you win or lose. Also, planning your recruits to schedule around each other plays a big role too. So scheduling visits with 2 quarterbacks at the same time could actually negatively impact their experience, as they're going to view the other guy as competition. But let's say you have a quarterback and a receiver, or a quarterback and a left tackle visiting at the same time. That could actually boost some interest and have bonus interest for both recruits, as they might see each other as potential teammates in the future. After setting the date of when the prospect is going to visit, the next step is to select what they're going to do on their visit. They didn't give the activities out, but there are 14 activities a recruit can do during a visit, and each activity maps to a prospect's motivation. Very similar to pitches, the alignment of recruits' interest level in that activity and your school grade will determine how much the recruit enjoys the activity. And another key thing to note here is, remember in the gameplay deep dive, they talked about players having both physical and mental attributes. They can have up to 5 physical and up to 3 mental. So players on your team, after you have them, they can gain physical attributes throughout their career, but not mental attributes. So whatever mental traits they have or don't have coming in as freshmen is what they're going to be stuck with their entire collegiate career. You also, like I said earlier, won't be able to see their development traits until signing day. Now, the development traits, that is their normal, impact, star, and elite. Normal is the most common, just steady growth, normal development. Impact players progress a little bit faster, they can change the team. Then you have the next level, which is like star player development. That's your potential NFL talent. Very few types of these guys. And then the elite development trait is basically the guys who have potential to be all-time greats. So you're not gonna be able to see those until signing day unless you have a perk that allows you to potentially see it beforehand. So, you signed players, you made your coach, right? You signed your staff, you've recruited all season long. Hypothetically, you win the national championship, congratulations. Your star halfback wins the Heisman. Now it's time for the offseason. So what do? This is where the transfer portal comes in, and this is where player development comes in, and this is where the coaching carousel comes in. God, man, there is a lot here. So let's start with player development. Players in real life, they improve throughout the season, but honestly, the bulk of your improvement comes in the spring and summer during the team workouts, summer workouts and training. You're in spring ball, you have the spring game. So remember when you were building out your coaching staff and those traits earlier? Yeah, that has an impact here. The amount a player progresses is influenced by coaches' abilities and their own development traits and their school year. So a player who's a rising sophomore will see a larger jump in skill than a rising season naturally. If you were to put two of identical players with identical coaching staff side by side, the sophomore is going to see a larger jump in skill than the senior. Now we take that same player and let's say your coaching staff has the put in work ability. It's an ability that can increase off-season development for players in a position group, or a coach that has a specific influencing player development ability where if a running back was drafted, let's say your Heisman running back got drafted into the NFL, now your new recruits and young guys who are running backs in the offseason, that coach can use that ability to help boost their progression in the offseason. So your staff's abilities and your own abilities are going to play a role in how fast your players can also develop. And then, like we just mentioned, with player development traits of normal, impact, star, and elite, obviously those play a role too as how fast they're going to develop in the offseason as well. So then we have the coaching carousel, and it can be chaotic in real life, and EA is setting out to recreate that with College Football 25. It will last for a 5-week period from Conference Championship Week to the end of the bowl season. So, let's say there's an LSU job that's opening up that week 1, and, maybe you're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to hold up and see what else is out there. You could miss that job, and they decided to go with Notre Dame's head coach early on, and then you missed out on that job. So during week 1, you'll get notified if the school wants to keep you, fire you, or extend your contract. And this is also the time where you can extend contracts with your coordinators or fire your coordinators if you were the head coach. The game's going to give you a job offer notification if you have any, and also notify you of any other coaching hires and fires from around the league. So how does the school determine if you get to keep your job? There's the whole job security thing. It has to do with your coach level, your coach scheme, your archetype, your recruiting pipeline, and your prestige. All those things are combined to create a school score to see if you're the right fit for their program. And then you want to do the same when deciding your coordinators. You want to look at their level, you want to look at their archetype, you want to look at their scheme, what their pipelines are, because even when it comes to recruiting, and they've really gone in depth here with the recruiting classes. I was reading in there that, receivers from South Florida tend to be a little bit smaller and faster, while receivers from East Texas might be, bigger dudes who are stronger. So what kind of receiver do you want on your team? Does your offensive coordinator need to have a Texas pipeline to fit your scheme needs of what you have in your head? Or does, your offense cater towards those faster spreading the ball out guys, and you need to start recruiting some receivers from the South Florida area? All of these are questions you should be asking yourself when managing your staff. And with player development, players are no longer developing individual skills, but now skill groups. For example, power skills. Power for a running back, that's going to include trucking, strength, stiff arm, his toughness, jumping, energy. So instead of upgrading only the trucking or only the stiff arm, you're now upgrading his power, and everything within the power collection is going to see an improvement. Some other really dope things, the whole part of having different regions produce different types of players. So, you have great receivers that come from East Texas, you have great receivers that come from South Florida, but they're also different types of receivers. And you're going to notice that in the recruiting classes. And it also means that, hey, if a pocket quarterback is something that you want, maybe recruiting out of Southern California is where you need to be looking for a quarterback, or maybe you need to be looking for a scrambling quarterback somewhere in Georgia. Another cool thing is dynamic stickers. So Ohio State has the Buckeye flower, Florida State has them on their helmets too, and those are actually going to change throughout the season based on what a player accomplishes from week to week. So as the season goes on, you're going to see more and more of those stickers and those helmet decals pop up on that school. We didn't really get any information on Team Builder other than it's going to be included for online Dynasty mode. It can be up to 16 custom teams that will have to replace current FBS schools. And it will be, I think, for private online dynasties only, is what they're saying. But yeah, both online and offline dynasties can go up to 30 seasons, being able to support up to 32 users. And that's how it all works. Next up is Road to Glory mode, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us for that. This was quite the deep dive. I hope I broke it down in like a cohesive order. I tried to do it in a way that, you know, when you turn on the game and you start Dynasty mode, like this is the order that you would do things. So that's how I tried to present this information to you all. So I hope I made it all clear. There's a lot to unpack. I think I went over everything as best as I could, and I'm sure I definitely missed some things, but I'm really excited. It's turning out to be awesome. A lot of familiar things that we've already seen in previous NCAA football games, but it's also nice and reassuring to see that those are not only coming back, but having some added depth to them. It's not just like copy and pasting features we're used to. It's copying those features and then enhancing them. You know, we're seeing an enhancement, like we could schedule visits before, but there weren't like recruiting activities. There also weren't pairing recruits with each other to provide bonuses, things like that. And also having just differences of like receiver types you might find in different regions throughout the country and quarterback types you'll find throughout the country. Just little details like that, just, you know, it makes everything just sound really promising. Can't wait to see what they have for Road to Glory for us. And let me know in the comments, are you going with a 5-star powerhouse, or are you going to try and rebuild a 1-star school, or are you going wild card? Are you going to create your own team and team builder and build your school from there? Until next time.